Uh, don't you just love being home? Like just the warmth of it all? Just feels so cozy. It's your place, away from all the people. I love this home. And I don't think I've ever told y'all how I got it. Like most home buying processes, it was lengthy and very painful. Literally. Irene Trace, one of the most peaceful roads. And just my luck, I'm viciously attacked by bandits. And left to die. After what felt like ages, I finally heard some footsteps approaching. What I could make out when I looked up was an angelic-looking figure, a high elf, I assume. So trying my best not to cough up blood on his robes, I asked for help. He apologizes and tells me that he's on a healing journey himself, one that forbids him from touching a being in pain. So he walks off. After some time, I tried to pull myself out of the gutter, but something felt broken. Once again, I heard some footsteps approaching, and once I got the tears of pain out of my eyes and looked up, this figure was much less angelic than the last one. But still, I needed help, so I reached out to the masked figure. He stoops down and introduces himself as a doctor. Seeing the blood and bruises, he says that he has just the potion for me, for a fee. I try to explain my financial situation since, I was robbed. Once he realized I didn't have any money, he just left. I could feel myself growing weaker and weaker. And then I just accepted it. I mean, this had to be it, right? As the light began to fade from my sight, I could swear I could hear death walking right for me. When I finally came to, I was in a house I didn't recognize, with a man cooking something at the hearth. When I tried to talk, I ended up coughing up a lung. He then asked me if I'm okay. I, of course, asked who he was. He tells me his name is Boma Dutir Sanba, a nomadic cleric from the Ket order. He tells me that he was on a holy mission from the island of Nazara when he found me and felt it was his duty to heal me. To help my dry throat and constant coughing, he offered to pour me a drink. Of course I accepted it. And after a very good sip, I said thank you and asked if there was any way I could repay him. He waved me off and mentioned that the loaf was ready. I finally realized that there was this sweet nuttiness in the air. He pulls out this delicious smelling bread, and he cuts me off a slice and hands it to me. I try to ask him what's in it, to which he says, "Don't worry about it." After taking a bite or two, all of a sudden I realized I didn't hurt anymore. My bruises, my cuts, everything was healed. This bread healed me. With tears in my eyes, I thanked him over and over again. And instead of "You're welcome," he just hands me a door handle and a piece of paper, saying in case I decide to get into trouble again. Turns out, the paper had the recipe for this healing bread. So of course, I'm going to share with y'all this healing bread recipe. It's really it's delicious. It's a little sweet, but not too sweet. And before we get into the recipe, please, if you enjoy the episode, like, subscribe, comment. It really helps us out. But after that, let's get baking. All right, so before we actually start mixing up our dough, we're going to melt 4 tablespoons of butter. We just want it melted. We don't want it brown, so we'll put this over the fire, get that going down. And while that melts, we will do a rough chop on some nuts. So in the original recipe that he gave me, he used walnuts. I don't have walnuts, but I do have some very nice neighbors who have a lot of pecans. So I toasted these myself, and we just want to get a nice rough chop. And then those will be ready to go. All right, while we wait for that butter to cool down, we can take the other part of our stick of butter and we want to butter up our bread dish. And we want to get all sides of it nice and evenly coated, and then we're going to use a little extra flour just to make sure that the loaf doesn't stick as it bakes. So we just coat all the sides. There's 1,000 different ways you can do this. I just do it by hand because I kind of like the feeling of melting butter in your hand. It's really weird, but I do. Get all that. And then we want to take a little bit of our all-purpose flour, just kind of dust it around. You jiggle it so that way it coats the sides. And then whatever is left over, you just tap out into your bowl. And now our butter should be cooled. All right, so to get this started, we want to mix all of our dry ingredients. So we've got 3/4 each of rye flour, cornmeal, and all-purpose flour. We just throw that all in a bowl with our baking soda and baking powder. Then we throw in our chopped nuts. And then we take a whisk and simply distribute that evenly. Make sure everything's nice and mixed. You don't see a nut that's not covered in some sort of flour. All right, and very quick, now we get to mix our wet ingredients. All right, so we've got our 1 cup of buttermilk. We are going to do 1/2 cup of unsulfured molasses that is not blackstrap. And I found it's always easier to start with the molasses and get that incorporated. And the nice thing about this molasses is this is what's going to give your bread most of its color. You can see how dark that got really quick. Make sure that's nice and incorporated, mixed in. Usually you want to use a container that has a larger mouth so that way you can scoop all of it in there, but that's okay. And then we can add our cooled butter. So in the original recipe that he gave me, he used unsalted butter and he added his salt in by hand. I just use salted butter and every time it comes out just fine. It will curdle a little bit when you add it in, and that is okay. All right, that looks pretty good. Now we're ready to mix them together. All right, now that we've got our wet and dry ingredients, we want to make a little well here in the middle of our dry ingredients, and we're going to add in our wet. And for this part, you want to switch from a whisk to some sort of spatula because we're going to fold it together, and you want to make sure that you don't overmix. So basically, once you get to a point where you don't see any dry flour, leave it alone. It's ready to go into the pan. So we're just gonna mix. All right, now that we've got it all mixed, we are going to dump it into our loaf pan. Get it all in there. We're gonna smooth it over a little bit. And then, hopefully, you've already preheated your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. And we will stick it in there for 20 minutes. Then we're going to turn it and do another 20 minutes. And you'll have a nice little loaf. All right, that looks pretty good. So now, into the oven. Ooh, hot, 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 hot. Ooh, 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 that's good. All right, so we left this in there in all about 40 minutes at 350. It's nice and firm to the touch. Also, we stuck a toothpick in it to make sure that it was done all the way through and nothing came out when we removed it. So now we've got to let this cool on some sort of elevated surface, a cooling rack or something. This is what I have. So we're gonna let this sit here for about 20 minutes inside of the pan still, and then we'll come back, we'll flip it out, we'll try it. All right, we have let this rest for another 20 minutes, so now we're just gonna flip it out. Oh yeah, that is real nice. So now let's get a slice. Usually you want to do this with a serrated knife. It just helps make a little bit cleaner of a cut. But this is what I've got, so ooh, nice and spongy. Mmm. Oh yeah, that is so good. It's just a nice dense piece of bread with just enough sweetness that you could probably have it as a dessert if you wanted to. Slap some butter on this, so good. Mmm. Oh, you're probably wondering about that handle, aren't you? After giving me the healing bread recipe and the handle, he starts to head out. But I had to know what it did. He just tells me to place it on any flat surface, and a home won't be too far away. He then blesses me and tells me to enjoy my new home. Right before he leaves, he tells me he called a friend to help me get my stuff back, but I'll need potatoes. A lot of potatoes.
Alright. Go, West! Action! Go! Crawl like your life depends on it!
Speed.
5, Alpha 1.
Who are you?
I'm Bowman Dudiers.
Let's go again. We'll reset. Hey, Speed. Pretty.
Speak into my bosom.
1, Albaforth, take 2.
I don't like that one.